Have you ever felt like you were born with a deep understanding of people, yet life kept pushing you further into the shadows until you became someone entirely different? Someone stronger, more independent, and impossible to categorize? If you're nodding your head right now, you might be witnessing the transformation from an INFJ to what many call a Sigma INFJ. And here's the thing, this isn't something you're just handed at birth. It's forged through fire, through disappointment, through lessons that cut deep and scars that taught you more than any book ever could. Today, we're diving into one of the most misunderstood personality evolutions out there. We're talking about how the rarest personality type in the world becomes even rarer when life shapes it into something extraordinary. So stick around, because what you're about to discover might just explain everything you've been feeling but couldn't quite put into words. The natural state, how an INFJ operates in their pure form. In their natural, untempered state, INFJs are people-oriented in ways that can be absolutely beautiful and sometimes heartbreaking to witness. These individuals will give you the shirt off their back without thinking twice. They'll listen to your problems for hours, offering insights that somehow cut right to the heart of the matter. They have this uncanny ability to make you feel seen, heard, and understood in a world where most people are too busy scrolling through their phones to make eye contact. Young INFJs, or those who haven't been through the ringer yet, tend to be open books. Well, sort of. They're paradoxical creatures, deeply private yet desperate to connect. They'll share their inner world with people they trust, hoping to find that soul-deep connection they crave. They believe in the good in people, sometimes too much. They give second chances like they're handing out candy on Halloween. Third chances? Sure. Fourth? Why not? Maybe this time will be different. This version of the INFJ is idealistic to a fault. They think that if they just love hard enough, care deeply enough, and try persistently enough, they can fix the broken people around them. They take on other people's emotional baggage like it's their job, carrying weight that was never theirs to bear in the first place. They're the friend everyone calls at 2 a.m., the shoulder everyone cries on, the therapist who never sends a bill. And honestly, it's exhausting. But they keep doing it because helping others feels like their purpose. It feels like what they were put on this earth to do. The turning point, when reality hits different. But then life happens. And I'm not talking about minor inconveniences or small disappointments. I'm talking about the kind of experiences that shake you to your core. The moments that make you question everything you thought you knew about people, relationships, and yourself. For every INFJ, there comes a turning point, or several, where the rose-colored glasses get absolutely shattered. Maybe it's the friend they defended for years who stabs them in the back without a second thought. Maybe it's the romantic partner they gave everything to who took their kindness for weakness. Maybe it's the family member who exploited their generous nature one too many times. Or perhaps it's something bigger. A betrayal so profound that it changes the entire trajectory of their life. A disappointment so deep that it forces them to look in the mirror and ask the hard question, why do I keep letting this happen? These aren't just bad days or rough patches. These are defining moments that crack open the naive shell of the pure INFJ and let reality come flooding in. And here's the brutal truth. These experiences hurt differently for INFJs than they do for other personality types. Because when you've invested your whole heart, when you've believed so deeply in someone's potential, when you've given pieces of yourself you can never get back, the betrayal cuts deeper than most people can imagine. The INFJ starts to notice patterns. They realize that not everyone who smiles in their face has good intentions. They see that some people are takers who will drain them dry without ever giving anything back. They understand that their empathy, which they always thought was their superpower, has been used as a weapon against them. This is where the transformation begins. This is where the Sigma INFJ starts to emerge from the ashes of who they used to be. The forging process, how experience shapes the Sigma INFJ. The journey from INFJ to Sigma INFJ isn't a gentle evolution. It's more like being thrown into a forge and heated until everything that isn't essential burns away. First comes the withdrawal. The INFJ who once gave freely starts pulling back. Not because they've stopped caring, that's impossible for an INFJ, but because they've learned that caring has a cost and not everyone is worth the price. They start building walls. But these aren't the walls of bitterness or hatred. They're boundaries. Real, healthy boundaries that they should have had all along but didn't know they needed. The Sigma INFJ learns to observe before engaging. They watch, they analyze, they test. Where they once dove headfirst into connections, they now dip a toe in the water first. And if the temperature's not right, they walk away without apology. This is huge, by the way. Walking away without guilt is like an Olympic-level achievement for an INFJ. But the Sigma INFJ? They've mastered it. They've learned that protecting their peace isn't selfish, it's survival. They become incredibly selective about who gets access to their inner world. The door that was once wide open is now locked, and only a very few people get the key. And even then they're on probation. The Sigma INFJ develops what I call strategic empathy. They still have that profound ability to understand people. That never goes away, but now they choose when and how to use it. They're no longer giving their insights away for free to people who don't appreciate them. They learn to say no. Just no. Not no because, or I'm sorry but I can't because. Just a simple, firm no. And it's revolutionary. Through experience, they discover that being alone is better than being with the wrong people. In fact, solitude becomes their sanctuary. It's where they recharge, reflect, and reconnect with themselves without the noise of others' needs drowning out their own voice. The transformation involves letting go of the need to fix people. This might be the hardest lesson of all. The Sigma INFJ finally accepts that they can't save everyone, and more importantly, it's not their job to try. The Sigma traits, what sets this evolution apart? So what exactly is a Sigma INFJ? What makes them different from the standard INFJ blueprint? Let's break it down because this is where things get really interesting. A Sigma INFJ is self-reliant to their core. While regular INFJs might seek validation or connection to feel whole, the Sigma INFJ has learned to be their own source of strength. They've discovered that the only person they can truly depend on is themselves, and they've made peace with that reality. They're lone wolves by choice, not circumstance. Sure, they could have friends and social connections if they wanted. They're still charming when they need to be, still capable of deep conversation and meaningful interaction. But they prefer quality over quantity, and honestly, they're just fine with their own company, thank you very much. The Sigma INFJ operates outside the social hierarchy. They don't care about fitting in or climbing any social ladder. They're not trying to be the alpha of the group or compete for status. They've simply opted out of the whole game because they see it for what it is, a waste of energy. They've developed an almost intimidating level of independence. They don't need anyone's permission to live their life their way. They make decisions based on their own values and insights, not what society says they should do. Here's something fascinating. The Sigma INFJ keeps their mystique intact. While a regular INFJ might overshare in hopes of connection, the Sigma version reveals very little. They're comfortable being misunderstood. In fact, they prefer it. It keeps people at a safe distance. They've learned to trust their intuition without second-guessing themselves. That inner voice that was always there? Now they listen to it religiously. If something feels off, they don't need 3 more red flags and a written explanation to walk away. They're gone. The Sigma INFJ has also developed emotional detachment as a skill. They can care about someone without being consumed by that person's problems. They can empathize without absorbing. They can love without losing themselves. This is master-level emotional intelligence that only comes through hard-won experience. They're observers who speak only when it adds value. No more filling silence with nervous chatter or explaining themselves to people who won't understand anyway. They watch, they learn, they say what needs to be said, and then they move on. The power of solitude. Why Sigma INFJs thrive alone. Let's talk about something that confuses a lot of people. Why would someone with such a deep capacity for connection choose to be alone? For the Sigma INFJ, solitude isn't loneliness. It's freedom. In their younger years, the INFJ might have felt lonely even in a crowded room. They were surrounded by people but felt deeply misunderstood. They craved that soul-level connection but rarely found it. So they kept trying, kept reaching out, kept hoping the next person would be different. But the Sigma INFJ has flipped the script entirely. They've realized that being alone with their thoughts is far more fulfilling than being with people who drain their energy or fail to appreciate their depth. In solitude, they don't have to perform. They don't have to monitor everyone else's emotional temperature. They don't have to worry about saying the wrong thing or being too much or not enough. They can just be. This alone time becomes sacred. It's where they do their best thinking, their most creative work, their deepest healing. It's where they process everything they've absorbed from the world without new input constantly disrupting their peace. The Sigma INFJ has learned that their energy is precious and finite. Every interaction has a cost. So they've become incredibly intentional about how and where they spend that energy. And most of the time, spending it on themselves just makes more sense. They've also discovered something powerful. They're better friends, partners, and family members when they've had enough alone time. By filling their own cup first, they have something genuine to offer when they do choose to engage. Relationships and connections. How the Sigma INFJ approaches others. Now, don't get it twisted. Sigma INFJs aren't hermits who hate humanity. They haven't given up on people entirely. They've just gotten extremely selective. When it comes to relationships, the Sigma INFJ has a prove-it mentality. They're no longer impressed by words, promises, or potential. They watch what people do consistently over time. Actions are the only currency they accept. They've learned to spot red flags from a mile away. That intuition they were born with? It's now backed by experience, making it nearly impossible to fool them. They can read people like books they've read 1,000 times before. For romantic relationships, the standards are sky high. The Sigma INFJ would rather be single for years than settle for someone who doesn't match their energy, respect their boundaries, or understand their need for space. They've been in relationships where they lost themselves, and they're never going back to that place. In friendships, they maintain a small, tight circle. These are people who have proven their loyalty, who respect the Sigma INFJ's boundaries, and who bring genuine value to their life. Everyone else gets the polite but distant version of them. The Sigma INFJ has mastered the art of being friendly without being friends. They can have pleasant interactions with people without feeling obligated to turn those interactions into deep connections. It's a skill that protects their peace while allowing them to navigate social situations when necessary. They've also become comfortable with one-sided relationships ending. In the past, the INFJ might have fought to keep every connection alive, even when it was clearly over. The Sigma version? They let go without drama. When someone shows they're not meant to be in their life, they don't force it. Here's something important. The Sigma INFJ can still love deeply. In fact, when they do let someone in, that person gets a loyalty and devotion that's almost unmatched. But getting to that inner circle? That's like winning the lottery. It's rare, precious, and not given lightly. The professional life. How Sigma INFJs navigate work and career. In the workplace, the Sigma INFJ is a fascinating creature. They're often underestimated because they don't play the political games or fight for the spotlight. But underestimate them at your own risk. These individuals are usually incredibly competent at what they do. They've channeled their natural insight and pattern recognition into expertise. They see solutions others miss. They understand systems and people in ways that make them invaluable, whether their bosses realize it or not. But here's the thing, they're not trying to climb the corporate ladder. They're not interested in managing people or playing office politics. They want to do meaningful work, do it well, and go home. That's it. Many Sigma INFJs end up working independently or in roles that allow them significant autonomy. They can't stand being micromanaged or working in environments where incompetence is rewarded and merit is ignored. They'd rather work alone than deal with the frustration of dysfunctional team dynamics. They're the people who get stuff done quietly while everyone else is busy taking credit and making noise. They don't need recognition, though it's nice when it comes. Their satisfaction comes from the work itself, from knowing they did it right. The Sigma INFJ has also learned not to give 110% to organizations that would replace them in a heartbeat. They've seen loyal employees discarded after years of service. They know that companies rarely reciprocate the devotion employees give them. So they do their job well, but they keep healthy boundaries between their identity and their work. Many eventually start their own businesses or become freelancers. The freedom to control their time, choose their clients, and work in ways that honor their values becomes irresistible. They'd rather struggle independently than thrive in a soul-crushing corporate environment. The dark side, challenges the Sigma INFJ faces. Now, we need to keep it real for a second. This transformation isn't all empowerment and strength. There's a shadow side that deserves attention. First off, there's the risk of becoming too closed off. The Sigma INFJ can swing too far in the opposite direction, building walls so high that even genuine people can't get through. They might push away connections that could actually be good for them because they're too focused on protecting themselves. There's also the danger of bitterness creeping in. When you've been hurt enough times, when you've seen the worst in people, it's easy to become cynical. The Sigma INFJ has to actively fight against letting their past experiences poison their view of all humanity. Some Sigma INFJs struggle with trusting anyone at all. They've been burned by people they never thought would hurt them, so now everyone's a potential threat. This hypervigilance is exhausting and can prevent meaningful connections from forming. There's also the isolation factor. While solitude is healing and necessary, too much of it can become unhealthy. Humans are social creatures, even the most introverted among us. The Sigma INFJ needs to be careful not to isolate themselves to the point where they lose touch with the outside world completely. Sometimes, the emotional detachment that serves them so well can swing into emotional numbness. They might shut down their feelings so effectively that they stop feeling much of anything at all. That's not strength, that's self-protection taken too far. The Sigma INFJ might also struggle with feeling like they don't belong anywhere. They're too deep for shallow people but too guarded for deep people. They exist in this middle space that can feel incredibly lonely, even when they've chosen it. And there's the question that haunts some of them. Have I changed for the better, or have I just become cold? It's a valid concern. Growth and healing sometimes look similar to shutting down, and it can be hard to tell the difference. Finding balance, the healthy Sigma INFJ. The healthiest version of a Sigma INFJ is someone who's learned from their experiences without letting those experiences completely harden them. They maintain their boundaries without building prisons. They're selective about relationships but remain open to genuine connections when they appear. They've learned to protect their peace without cutting themselves off from all possibility of meaningful interaction. A balanced Sigma INFJ still has access to their empathy, they just deploy it strategically. They haven't lost their ability to care deeply, they've just gotten better at caring for people who deserve it and for causes that matter. They've made peace with their past. They don't carry resentment like a badge of honor. They've processed their pain, learned the lessons it taught them, and moved forward. They don't need to keep reliving their betrayals or proving how much they've overcome. The healthy Sigma INFJ has learned self-compassion alongside their self-reliance. They're as patient with themselves as they once were with everyone else. They forgive themselves for past naivety. They celebrate their growth without judging who they used to be. They maintain a few close relationships where vulnerability is still possible. They haven't shut the door completely on intimacy and connection. They've just become more discerning about who gets access to those parts of them. They've found purpose and meaning that goes beyond people-pleasing. Maybe it's their work, their creative pursuits, their personal growth, or their contribution to causes they believe in. Whatever it is, it fulfills them without requiring constant validation from others. The balanced Sigma INFJ knows when to be alone and when to engage. They listen to their intuition about which invitations to accept and which to decline. They don't force themselves into social situations that drain them, but they also don't avoid all human contact out of fear. The gift of transformation, what the Sigma INFJ offers the world. Here's something beautiful about this transformation. The Sigma INFJ, despite everything they've been through, still has so much to offer. Their hard-won wisdom is invaluable. They can spot manipulation, recognize genuine people, and see through facades with accuracy that's almost uncanny. When they do choose to share their insights, those insights are gold because they're backed by real experience, not just theory. They're incredible mentors for younger INFJs or anyone going through similar transformations. They can say, "I've been there and here's what I learned," with authentic authority. They can help others avoid some of the painful lessons they had to learn the hard way. The Sigma INFJ's presence is powerful precisely because it's so grounded. They're not performing or pretending. What you see is what you get, or at least what they've chosen to show you. There's an authenticity to them that's rare and refreshing. When they do form connections, those connections are real. There's no game playing, no hidden agendas, no manipulation. They're too tired for that nonsense and too wise to engage in it. If they're in your corner, you've got someone who will be honest with you even when it's hard. Their independence inspires others. In a world where everyone seems desperate for approval and validation, the Sigma INFJ shows that it's possible to be okay on your own. They model self-reliance in a way that's empowering rather than isolating. They often create beautiful things, art, writing, music, businesses, whatever, because they've channeled their deep emotions and experiences into creative expression. Their work often touches people deeply because it comes from a place of genuine feeling and hard-earned truth. The Sigma INFJ proves that survival doesn't mean you have to lose your soul. They've been through the fire and come out refined, not destroyed. They show that you can be strong without being hard, independent without being cold, and protective without being closed off to all possibility. Recognizing your own journey, are you becoming a Sigma INFJ? If you've made it this far, you might be wondering where you fall on this spectrum. Are you a classic INFJ, a Sigma INFJ in the making, or fully transformed? Here are some signs you're going through this evolution. You find yourself less willing to tolerate behavior you once excused. That friend who always shows up late? That family member who guilts you into things? You're no longer making excuses for them or accommodating their disrespect. You've started choosing peace over being right. You're walking away from arguments you would have engaged in before. Not because you don't care, but because you've realized some battles aren't worth your energy. Your social battery drains faster than it used to. Where you might have once powered through social events, now you're protecting your energy like it's precious. Because it is. You're noticing patterns in people's behavior quickly. What used to take you months to recognize now takes days or even minutes. Your intuition has gotten sharper, backed by experience. You feel guilty less often about setting boundaries. That weight you used to carry when saying no? It's getting lighter. You're starting to believe you actually have the right to protect yourself. You're more comfortable with being misunderstood. You're not explaining yourself as much. People get it, great. If they don't, that's okay too. Solitude feels restorative rather than lonely. Your alone time has shifted from something you endure to something you crave and protect. You're less interested in potential and more focused on proof. Someone's promises don't move you the way they once did. You want to see consistent action over time. If these things resonate, you're likely in the midst of this transformation. And that's not something to fear, it's something to honor. Embracing the evolution, moving forward as a Sigma INFJ. So where do you go from here? If you recognize yourself in this description, first of all, know that your transformation is valid. You're not becoming cold or bitter. You're becoming wise and boundaried. There's a massive difference. Honor your journey. The pain you've experienced wasn't for nothing. It taught you invaluable lessons about people, relationships, and yourself. Those lessons are part of your strength now. Keep refining your boundaries. They'll need adjustment as you grow. What works for you now might need tweaking later, and that's fine. Boundaries aren't walls. They're flexible guidelines that protect your peace while allowing for genuine connection. Stay connected to your core values. Despite everything, you're still that person who cares deeply, who sees potential, who wants to make a difference. You've just gotten better at choosing where to direct that energy. Don't close the door completely on connection. Yes, be selective. Yes, protect yourself. But remain open to the possibility that good people exist and you might encounter them. Balance your wisdom with a willingness to be surprised. Continue growing and learning. The transformation from INFJ to Sigma INFJ isn't the final destination. You're always evolving, always learning, always becoming. Stay curious about yourself and the world. Use your insights to help others when it feels right. You've got wisdom that others need. Share it generously with those who will appreciate it, but don't cast your pearls before swine, as they say. Practice self-compassion. You're doing the best you can with what you know. Some days you'll nail this Sigma INFJ thing. Other days you might revert to old patterns. That's being human, not failing. Remember that it's okay to still be figuring this out. Nobody hands you a manual for how to be a Sigma INFJ. You're writing your own story, learning as you go, and that's exactly how it should be. Conclusion. So here's what we've learned today. An INFJ is born with remarkable gifts, deep empathy, intuitive understanding, and a genuine desire to connect and help. But a Sigma INFJ? That's created through fire. The Sigma INFJ is what happens when someone with all that natural sensitivity and insight gets tested by life, hurt by people they trusted, and forced to choose between losing themselves or finding themselves. They choose themselves. And in doing so, they become something rare and powerful. They keep their empathy but add boundaries. They maintain their caring nature but channel it strategically. They preserve their depth but protect it fiercely. This transformation isn't about becoming someone new. It's about becoming who you needed to be all along. Someone who's as good to themselves as they've always been to others. If you're on this journey, know that you're not alone. There are others out there who've walked this path, who understand the price of wisdom and the weight of experience. We see you. We get it. And we're cheering you on. The world needs Sigma INFJs. We need people who've been through the darkness and emerged with their light intact, just more focused. We need people who can see through the noise and speak truth with authority earned through experience. We need people who prove that being strong doesn't mean being cruel, and that independence doesn't mean isolation. An INFJ is born, yes, but a Sigma INFJ? That's earned. That's forged through trials that would break lesser souls. That's choosing to rise from the ashes and say, I'm still here, I'm still me, but I'm also so much more. And honestly, that's pretty powerful. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the Sigma INFJ transformation. If this resonated with you, if you saw yourself in these words, drop a comment and let me know where you are on your journey. And remember, your transformation isn't making you cold. It's making you wise. There's a massive difference, and you should be proud of how far you've come. Until next time, protect your peace, trust your intuition, and never apologize for becoming who you needed to be.